Hey guys, tonight we're exploring medieval dental care, a time when your local barber was also your surgeon, dentist, and general medical practitioner who would cut your hair, pull your teeth, and perform amputations all in the same afternoon with the same unwashed tools. From chewing on twigs for oral hygiene to having your molars yanked out by someone whose primary qualification was owning a sharp knife. This is the story of humanity's most creative approaches to dental health before anyone understood germs, anesthesia, or basic sanitation. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Medieval dental hygiene was a fascinating combination of surprisingly effective folk wisdom and absolutely terrifying medical practices that would make modern dentists either laugh or cry, depending on their sense of humor about historical suffering. The average medieval person had teeth that were simultaneously cleaner and more damaged than modern people might expect, creating oral health situations that defied simple categorization as good or bad. Daily tooth cleaning relied heavily on chewing sticks, which were essentially twigs from specific trees that had been selected for their cleaning and medicinal properties. Popular choices included birch, oak, and willow twigs that were chewed until the ends frayed into primitive toothbrush bristles that could scrub teeth and massage gums with reasonable effectiveness. The preparation of chewing sticks involved selecting fresh twigs, removing the bark from one end, and then chewing that end until the wood fibers separated into brush-like structures that could clean teeth and remove food particles, creating medieval pharmacy of oral hygiene options. Tooth powder made from ground herbs, salt, and various abrasive materials provided additional cleaning power for people who could afford such luxury items. Common ingredients included ground sage, rosemary, salt, and crushed eggshells that created gritty mixtures designed to scrub away plaque and food debris while freshening breath through herbal aromatics. The application of tooth powder involved dipping damp chewing sticks into the mixture and then scrubbing teeth vigorously, creating medieval toothbrushing routines that combined mechanical cleaning with herbal medicine. The abrasive nature of these powders probably removed plaque effectively, but also wore down tooth enamel faster than modern dental hygiene would recommend. Breath-freshening techniques included chewing aromatic herbs like mint, parsley, and fennel seeds that provided temporary masking of oral odors while offering some antimicrobial benefits through their natural essential oils. These herbs were often grown in monastery gardens specifically for medicinal and oral hygiene purposes, creating medieval breath mint gardens. Mouth rinsing with various liquid solutions provided additional oral cleaning through swishing mixtures of water, wine, vinegar, and herbs that were designed to kill bacteria and remove food particles that chewing sticks might miss. These rinses often contained ingredients that actually had antimicrobial properties, making them surprisingly effective medieval mouthwashes. The timing of oral hygiene activities followed patterns that made sense within medieval daily routines, with most tooth cleaning happening in the morning after breaking the night fast and in the evening before sleep. However, the frequency of cleaning depended heavily on social status and access to cleaning materials that were considered luxury items for common people. Wealthy individuals had access to more elaborate oral hygiene tools, including ivory toothpicks, silver tongue scrapers, and imported spices for breath freshening that demonstrated both financial resources and cultural sophistication. These luxury dental tools were often decoratively crafted and served as status symbols as much as functional hygiene equipment. Poor people relied primarily on available natural materials like twigs, salt water, and common herbs that could be gathered or produced without significant expense. This created a two-tier system of dental care where oral hygiene quality was directly related to economic status and access to specialized materials. Dietary factors significantly affected medieval oral health, with common foods like coarse bread, root vegetables, and preserved meats requiring extensive chewing that provided natural teeth cleaning through mechanical action, while wearing down teeth through constant grinding against tough, fibrous materials that modern processed foods don't require. Sugar consumption was extremely limited for most medieval people, which actually provided significant protection against tooth decay compared to modern diets high in refined sugars and processed carbohydrates. However, honey was used as sweetener when available, and wealthy people had access to imported sweets that could cause dental problems similar to modern sugar-related tooth decay. The medieval understanding of oral health connected tooth problems to overall bodily health through the theory of humors, which suggested that dental issues were symptoms of imbalances in the body's natural fluids rather than local bacterial infections, which led to treatments that addressed systemic health rather than focusing specifically on oral bacteria and plaque removal. Preventive dental care involved maintaining proper diet, regular oral cleaning, and lifestyle habits that were believed to support overall health and prevent the humoral imbalances that supposedly caused tooth decay and gum disease that could lead to serious medical complications. Herbal treatments for preventing dental problems included regular use of plants with natural antimicrobial properties like sage, thyme, and cloves that were chewed, brewed into teas, or used in mouth rinses to maintain oral health and prevent the development of tooth decay and gum infections that could lead to serious medical complications. The social aspects of medieval oral hygiene included shared knowledge about effective cleaning techniques and herbal remedies that were passed down through families and communities, creating folk medical traditions that preserved practical information about maintaining dental health using available local resources and traditional preparation methods. And so, medieval daily dental care combined practical cleaning techniques with herbal medicine and dietary habits that provided reasonable oral hygiene within the constraints of available technology and medical understanding.
The medieval barber surgeon represented a unique combination of service provider, who would trim your hair, shave your beard, pull your teeth, perform surgery, and provide various medical treatments, all from the same shop, using tools that were rarely cleaned between different procedures. This professional arrangement created dental care experiences that were both convenient and terrifying, depending on your perspective and pain tolerance. Barbershops served as community medical centers where people could receive hair care, minor surgery, tooth extraction, bloodletting, wounds treatment, and various other services that required sharp instruments and basic anatomical knowledge. The combination of cosmetic and medical services created busy establishments that handled everything from grooming to emergency surgery. The tools used by barber surgeons included razors, knives, pliers, and various extraction instruments that were designed for multiple purposes and cleaned according to medieval standards that prioritized visible cleanliness over microscopic sterilization that hadn't been discovered yet. These multi-purpose tools created efficiency and cross-contamination risks in equal measure. Tooth extraction was the primary dental service offered by barber surgeons, who approached the procedure with techniques that emphasized speed and force over precision and comfort. The extraction process typically involved gripping the problematic tooth with pliers or forceps and then pulling with steady pressure until the tooth came free from its socket, hopefully in one piece. Anesthesia for dental procedures consisted primarily of alcohol consumption and herbal preparations that provided mild pain relief and relaxation rather than complete unconsciousness. Patients were encouraged to drink wine or ale before procedures and might be given herbs like mandrake or opium poppy preparations that offered some sedative effects but limited actual pain blocking. The physical restraint methods used during dental procedures involved assistants holding patients steady while the barber surgeon worked, creating extraction scenes that resembled wrestling matches more than medical procedures. Patients were typically seated in chairs or held down on tables, while multiple people prevented movement during the tooth removal process. Complications from tooth extraction were common and included broken tooth fragments, jaw injuries, excessive bleeding, and infections that could develop into serious medical problems requiring additional treatment. The lack of sterile conditions and antibiotics meant that simple tooth extraction could lead to life-threatening complications that modern dentistry easily prevents. The aftermath of tooth extraction involved wound care techniques that included packing the socket with various materials like cloth, herbs, or salt to control bleeding and promote healing. These packing materials were supposed to be removed after several days, but patients often had to manage their own post-extraction care with varying degrees of success. Payment for dental services often involved bartering goods or services rather than money, since many people lacked sufficient coins to pay for medical care. Barber surgeons might accept food, clothing, tools, or labor in exchange for tooth extraction and other medical services, creating healthcare payment systems based on local resources and individual circumstances. The training of barber surgeons involved apprenticeships with established practitioners who taught techniques through observation and hands-on practice rather than formal medical education. This created varying levels of skill and knowledge among practitioners, with some developing genuine expertise while others relied primarily on enthusiasm and sharp tools. Guild regulations governed barber surgeon practices and established standards for tools, procedures, and professional conduct that were designed to maintain quality and prevent dangerous practices. However, enforcement of these standards varied significantly between different communities and regions, creating inconsistent levels of professional oversight. Competition between barber surgeons led to specialization and innovation as practitioners sought to attract customers through superior techniques or specialized services. Some barber surgeons developed reputations for particularly skillful tooth extraction or successful treatment of specific dental problems, creating medieval dental specialization within the broader profession. The social status of barber surgeons placed them between common craftsmen and university-trained physicians, creating professional identity issues and conflicts over medical authority. They provided essential services that educated physicians often refused to perform, but lacked the social prestige and theoretical knowledge associated with formal medical training. The religious considerations affected barber-surgeon practices through church regulations about blood, surgery, and medical intervention that were based on theological principles rather than medical effectiveness. These religious constraints sometimes limited the procedures that barber surgeons could perform legally, creating tension between medical needs and spiritual requirements. The working conditions in barber shops included poor lighting, limited ventilation, and cramped spaces that made detailed dental work challenging and potentially dangerous for both practitioners and patients. Most procedures were performed by natural light during daytime hours, with candles or oil lamps providing inadequate illumination for evening treatments. Record-keeping by barber surgeons varied from detailed documentation of procedures and outcomes to complete lack of written records, depending on literacy levels and business practices of individual practitioners. This inconsistent documentation makes it difficult for historians to assess the actual effectiveness of medieval dental treatments. The evolution of barber-surgeon practices reflected changing medical knowledge, tool technology, and social expectations that gradually improved the safety and effectiveness of dental procedures. However, progress was slow and uneven, with some practitioners adopting innovations while others maintained traditional methods regardless of their outcomes. Seasonal patterns affected barber-surgeon business as people delayed non-emergency dental procedures during busy agricultural seasons and sought treatment during winter months when other work was less demanding. This created cyclical patterns of dental care that reflected the agricultural rhythms of medieval life. The geographical distribution of barber surgeons concentrated these practitioners in larger towns and cities, leaving rural populations with limited access to professional dental care and greater reliance on folk remedies and self-treatment for dental problems. This created significant disparities in healthcare access based on location and population density. And so the barber surgeon's dental practice provided essential but primitive dental care that addressed immediate problems through direct intervention while creating new risks through unsanitary conditions and limited medical understanding of oral health and disease processes. Segment 3: Medieval Dental Problems and Treatments. Medieval dental problems encompassed the full range of oral health issues that still affect modern people, but with treatment options that were limited to extraction, herbal remedies, and prayer, rather than fillings, root canals, and antibiotics that make modern dental problems manageable, rather than life-threatening emergencies.
Tooth decay was the most common dental problem, caused by the same bacterial processes that affect modern teeth, but treated through methods that ranged from mildly effective herbal applications to complete tooth removal when the decay became too painful or infected to tolerate. The progression from minor cavity to major extraction was often rapid and irreversible. Toothache remedies included a vast array of herbal preparations, topical applications, and magical treatments that were designed to provide pain relief and address the underlying causes of dental pain. Popular remedies included clove oil, which actually contains effective numbing agents, and various plant extracts that provided temporary pain relief through mild anesthetic properties. The application of herbal toothache remedies involved placing crushed herbs, oils, or poultices directly onto the affected tooth and surrounding gums, creating treatments that could provide genuine relief when the herbs contained active compounds with anti-inflammatory or analgesic properties. However, the effectiveness varied widely depending on the specific herbs used and their preparation methods. Gum disease was recognized as a serious medical condition that could affect overall health and was treated through herbal mouth rinses, dietary modifications, and bloodletting procedures designed to rebalance the bodily humors that were believed to cause gum inflammation and infection. Some of these treatments actually provided benefit through antimicrobial or anti-inflammatory effects. Tooth abscess represented a dental emergency that could be life-threatening if the infection spread to other parts of the head and neck. Treatment options included lancing the abscess to drain pus, applying herbal poultices to draw out infection, and extracting the affected tooth to eliminate the source of bacterial contamination. The surgical treatment of dental abscesses involved cutting open the swollen gum tissue with sharp knives to allow infected material to drain, creating procedures that were extremely painful but potentially life-saving when performed successfully. The lack of sterile conditions meant that these procedures could also introduce new infections. Broken teeth from accidents or excessive wear were typically extracted rather than repaired, since medieval dentistry lacked materials and techniques for tooth restoration. Sharp or jagged tooth edges might be filed down to prevent injury to the tongue and cheeks, but structural repair was generally impossible with available technology. Tooth straightening for cosmetic or functional purposes was essentially non-existent in medieval times, with crooked teeth accepted as natural variations that didn't require medical intervention unless they caused eating difficulties or speech problems. The concept of orthodontics wouldn't develop for several more centuries. Missing teeth were replaced through various prosthetic methods that included wooden pegs, animal teeth, and metal fixtures that were tied or wired to remaining natural teeth. These primitive dental prosthetics provided limited functionality and were primarily cosmetic solutions for wealthy individuals who could afford such luxury items. The creation of dental prosthetics required skilled craftsmen who could carve replacement teeth from appropriate materials and devise attachment methods that would hold the artificial teeth in place during eating and speaking. These specialists worked closely with barber surgeons to provide comprehensive dental reconstruction services. Jaw problems from trauma or infection were treated through external manipulation, herbal applications, and dietary modifications designed to reduce stress on the affected joints and muscles. Serious jaw injuries often resulted in permanent disability since surgical repair of complex facial trauma was beyond medieval medical capabilities. Oral infections that spread to the face and neck were among the most dangerous dental complications, requiring aggressive treatment through multiple drainage procedures, extensive herbal therapy, and supportive care that might include specialized diets and bed rest to help the body fight off life-threatening bacterial infections. The diagnosis of dental problems relied primarily on visual examination and patient description of symptoms, since medieval practitioners lacked instruments for detailed oral examination or understanding of bacterial causes of dental disease. Treatment decisions were based on observable symptoms
and traditional knowledge rather than scientific analysis. The preventative treatments for dental problems included dietary recommendations, herbal supplements, and lifestyle modifications that were designed to maintain oral health and prevent the development of serious dental conditions. Some of these preventative approaches actually provided genuine benefit through improved nutrition and oral hygiene practices. The prognosis for medieval dental problems varied enormously depending on the specific condition, treatment quality, and individual patient factors like age, overall health, and access to appropriate care. Minor problems might resolve completely, while serious infections could be fatal despite aggressive treatment. The seasonal patterns in dental problems reflected dietary changes, weather effects on oral health, and the availability of treatment materials that varied throughout the year. Winter often brought increased dental problems due to limited fresh foods and reduced access to medicinal herbs. The social impact of dental problems included effects on eating, speaking, and social interaction that could significantly affect quality of life and economic productivity. Severe dental problems might prevent people from working effectively or participating fully in community activities. Economic factors influence dental treatment decisions as people weighed the costs of professional care against the benefits of pain relief and functional improvement. Many dental problems were simply endured rather than treated due to financial constraints and limited access to qualified practitioners. Regional variations in dental treatment reflected different cultural traditions, available materials, and practitioner training that created diverse approaches to similar dental problems. These variations provided natural experiments in treatment effectiveness that gradually improved medieval dental care through accumulated experience.
Medieval pain management for dental procedures represented humanity's most creative attempts to make unbearable experiences slightly more tolerable through combinations of alcohol, herbs, distraction techniques, and sheer determination that would impress modern pain specialists with their ingenuity, if not their effectiveness. The goal wasn't complete pain elimination, which was impossible, but reducing suffering to manageable levels. Alcohol served as the primary anesthetic for dental procedures, with patients encouraged to consume substantial quantities of wine, ale, or stronger spirits before treatment to achieve levels of intoxication that would dull pain perception and reduce anxiety about upcoming procedures. The amount required for effective pain relief often approached dangerous levels of alcohol poisoning. Herbal preparations with analgesic properties included opium poppy extracts, mandrake root, and various plant materials that contained natural compounds with genuine pain-relieving effects. These preparations were typically consumed as teas, tinctures, or poultices applied directly to painful areas to provide localized numbing and general relaxation. The preparation of herbal anesthetics required specialized knowledge about plant identification, proper extraction methods, and safe dosages that could provide pain relief without causing dangerous side effects. Skilled herbalists developed reputations for creating effective pain remedies that were sought after by both patients and medical practitioners. Physical restraint methods combined pain management with patient control during procedures.
using leather straps, wooden clamps, and multiple assistants to prevent movement that could interfere with surgical procedures. These restraint techniques were designed to protect both patients and practitioners from injury during violent reactions to pain. Distraction techniques included music, storytelling, and conversation designed to redirect patient attention away from painful procedures and toward more pleasant mental activities. Professional entertainers were sometimes employed during major surgical procedures to provide ongoing distraction that could reduce pain perception through psychological mechanisms. Religious pain management involved prayer, blessing ceremonies, and spiritual preparation that were designed to provide emotional support and divine assistance during medical procedures. Many patients found genuine comfort in religious rituals that connected their suffering to larger spiritual purposes and provided hope for divine intervention. The timing of dental procedures was carefully planned to optimize pain management effectiveness and patient recovery conditions. Most extractions were performed in the morning when patients were alert and could benefit from full daylight for wound care, while evening procedures were avoided due to poor lighting and reduced opportunity for post-operative monitoring. Post-procedure pain relief relied heavily on continued use of herbal preparations and alcohol to manage the extended discomfort that followed tooth extraction and other dental treatments. Patients were typically provided with supplies of pain-relieving herbs and instructions for their proper use during the recovery period. Wound care after dental procedures involved keeping extraction sites clean through gentle rinsing with herbal solutions and avoiding foods that might irritate healing tissues. Dietary modifications included soft foods, warm liquids, and nutritious broths that would support healing while minimizing stress on damaged oral tissues. Infection prevention relied on herbal antiseptics and careful wound monitoring to identify signs of bacterial contamination before they developed into serious complications. Early intervention with antimicrobial herbs and drainage procedures could sometimes prevent minor infections from becoming life-threatening conditions. The recovery timeline for dental procedures varied widely depending on the complexity of treatment, individual healing capacity, and quality of post-operative care. Simple extractions might heal completely within a few weeks, while complicated surgical procedures could require months of careful management and ongoing treatment. Nutritional support during recovery included special diets designed to promote healing while accommodating reduced chewing ability and oral sensitivity. These recovery diets emphasized soft foods rich in nutrients that would support tissue repair and immune function without requiring extensive mastication. The psychological aspects of dental recovery included managing anxiety about future dental problems and developing coping strategies for chronic oral pain that might persist after treatment. Patients often developed significant dental phobia based on traumatic treatment experiences that made future care more difficult to provide. Social support during dental recovery involved family and community assistance with daily activities that might be difficult for patients with oral injuries. This support network provided practical help with food preparation, medication administration, and monitoring for signs of complications that required professional attention. Long-term outcomes of medieval dental treatment ranged from complete recovery and restored function to permanent disability and ongoing health problems that affected quality of life for years after the original treatment.
Success rates were heavily influenced by the skill of practitioners and the availability of proper recovery care. The evolution of pain management techniques reflected accumulated experience with different approaches and gradual understanding of what methods provided the most effective relief with the fewest dangerous side effects. This experiential learning slowly improved pain management practices over time. As we settle into our modern beds with access to professional dental care, anesthesia, and antibiotics, there's something both horrifying and admirable about medieval people's willingness to endure excruciating dental procedures armed with nothing but alcohol and determination. Tomorrow, when we easily schedule dental cleanings and minor procedures that are completely painless, we can appreciate both our medical advantages and the remarkable human resilience that carried our ancestors through dental experiences that would traumatize modern patients despite their relative sophistication. And in the peaceful darkness of our modern world, where dental pain is easily managed and tooth loss is preventable rather than inevitable, sleep comes with quiet gratitude for medical progress and gentle sympathy for the medieval people who faced life's dental challenges with courage, creativity, and impressively high pain tolerance.
Hey guys, tonight we're exploring medieval dental care, a time when your local barber was also your surgeon, dentist, and general medical practitioner who would cut your hair, pull your teeth, and perform amputations all in the same afternoon with the same unwashed tools. From chewing on twigs for oral hygiene to having your molars yanked out by someone whose primary qualification was owning a sharp knife. This is the story of humanity's most creative approaches to dental health before anyone understood germs, anesthesia, or basic sanitation. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Medieval dental hygiene was a fascinating combination of surprisingly effective folk wisdom and absolutely terrifying medical practices that would make modern dentists either laugh or cry, depending on their sense of humor about historical suffering. The average medieval person had teeth that were simultaneously cleaner and more damaged than modern people might expect, creating oral health situations that defied simple categorization as good or bad. Daily tooth cleaning relied heavily on chewing sticks, which were essentially twigs from specific trees that had been selected for their cleaning and medicinal properties. Popular choices included birch, oak, and willow twigs that were chewed until the ends frayed into primitive toothbrush bristles that could scrub teeth and massage gums with reasonable effectiveness. The preparation of chewing sticks involved selecting fresh twigs, removing the bark from one end, and then chewing that end until the wood fibers separated into brush-like structures that could clean teeth and remove food particles, creating medieval pharmacy of oral hygiene options. Tooth powder made from ground herbs, salt, and various abrasive materials provided additional cleaning power for people who could afford such luxury items. Common ingredients included ground sage, rosemary, salt, and crushed eggshells that created gritty mixtures designed to scrub away plaque and food debris while freshening breath through herbal aromatics. The application of tooth powder involved dipping damp chewing sticks into the mixture and then scrubbing teeth vigorously, creating medieval toothbrushing routines that combined mechanical cleaning with herbal medicine. The abrasive nature of these powders probably removed plaque effectively, but also wore down tooth enamel faster than modern dental hygiene would recommend. Breath-freshening techniques included chewing aromatic herbs like mint, parsley, and fennel seeds that provided temporary masking of oral odors while offering some antimicrobial benefits through their natural essential oils. These herbs were often grown in monastery gardens specifically for medicinal and oral hygiene purposes, creating medieval breath mint gardens. Mouth rinsing with various liquid solutions provided additional oral cleaning through swishing mixtures of water, wine, vinegar, and herbs that were designed to kill bacteria and remove food particles that chewing sticks might miss. These rinses often contained ingredients that actually had antimicrobial properties, making them surprisingly effective medieval mouthwashes. The timing of oral hygiene activities followed patterns that made sense within medieval daily routines, with most tooth cleaning happening in the morning after breaking the night fast and in the evening before sleep. However, the frequency of cleaning depended heavily on social status and access to cleaning materials that were considered luxury items for common people. Wealthy individuals had access to more elaborate oral hygiene tools, including ivory toothpicks, silver tongue scrapers, and imported spices for breath freshening that demonstrated both financial resources and cultural sophistication. These luxury dental tools were often decoratively crafted and served as status symbols as much as functional hygiene equipment. Poor people relied primarily on available natural materials like twigs, salt water, and common herbs that could be gathered or produced without significant expense. This created a two-tier system of dental care where oral hygiene quality was directly related to economic status and access to specialized materials. Dietary factors significantly affected medieval oral health, with common foods like coarse bread, root vegetables, and preserved meats requiring extensive chewing that provided natural teeth cleaning through mechanical action, while wearing down teeth through constant grinding against tough, fibrous materials that modern processed foods don't require. Sugar consumption was extremely limited for most medieval people, which actually provided significant protection against tooth decay compared to modern diets high in refined sugars and processed carbohydrates. However, honey was used as sweetener when available, and wealthy people had access to imported sweets that could cause dental problems similar to modern sugar-related tooth decay. The medieval understanding of oral health connected tooth problems to overall bodily health through the theory of humors, which suggested that dental issues were symptoms of imbalances in the body's natural fluids rather than local bacterial infections, which led to treatments that addressed systemic health rather than focusing specifically on oral bacteria and plaque removal. Preventive dental care involved maintaining proper diet, regular oral cleaning, and lifestyle habits that were believed to support overall health and prevent the humoral imbalances that supposedly caused tooth decay and gum disease that could lead to serious medical complications. Herbal treatments for preventing dental problems included regular use of plants with natural antimicrobial properties like sage, thyme, and cloves that were chewed, brewed into teas, or used in mouth rinses to maintain oral health and prevent the development of tooth decay and gum infections that could lead to serious medical complications. The social aspects of medieval oral hygiene included shared knowledge about effective cleaning techniques and herbal remedies that were passed down through families and communities, creating folk medical traditions that preserved practical information about maintaining dental health using available local resources and traditional preparation methods. And so, medieval daily dental care combined practical cleaning techniques with herbal medicine and dietary habits that provided reasonable oral hygiene within the constraints of available technology and medical understanding. Pain management during medieval surgery relies on techniques that provide limited relief while maintaining patient consciousness for cooperation during the procedure. Strong wine or ale may be administered before surgery to dull pain sensation. Herbal preparations, including opium, mandrake, or other sedating plants, can provide some analgesic effect when available and properly prepared. However, most patients endure amputation with minimal pain relief beyond the shock response that sometimes provides natural unconsciousness during the most traumatic moments. The cauterization process represents one of medieval surgery's most important innovations for controlling bleeding and preventing infection in surgical wounds. Hot iron applied to severed blood vessels creates scar tissue that seals the vessels and prevents the continued bleeding that would otherwise cause death from blood loss. The burned tissue also provides some protection against infection by creating a barrier that bacteria find difficult to penetrate during initial healing. Post-operative care focuses on preventing infection and supporting the patient's recovery through the critical period when surgical trauma could still prove fatal. The amputation site requires daily inspection for signs of corruption or poor healing. Bandages must be changed regularly using the cleanest materials available. The patient's overall condition needs monitoring for fever, excessive bleeding, or other complications that might indicate the need for additional intervention. Dietary support during recovery emphasizes foods believed to promote healing and restore the patient's strength after the trauma of major surgery. Meat broths provide nutrition for patients with limited appetite. Wine offers both calories and mild analgesic effects for ongoing pain management. Herbs and spices may be added for their supposed healing properties and to make the restricted post-surgical diet more palatable during extended recovery. The success rate of medieval amputation varies significantly depending on factors that surgeons learn to recognize through experience with different types of cases. Battlefield amputations performed immediately after injury have better survival rates than procedures delayed until infection has time to spread throughout the limb. Young, healthy patients recover more successfully than elderly or already weakened individuals. Simple amputations below major joints heal more reliably than complex procedures that involve cutting through joint structures or removing large portions of limbs. Your afternoon practice includes treating a knight whose sword arm was mangled during a tournament accident, creating injuries too severe for healing, but located too close to the shoulder for simple amputation techniques. These complex cases require surgical judgment about whether attempted limb salvage offers better prospects than high amputation that removes healthy tissue to ensure complete removal of damaged areas that could become infected.
The Knight's case demonstrates medieval surgery's most challenging decisions about balancing surgical risk against functional outcomes for patients whose livelihood depends on physical capabilities that amputation would eliminate. A one-armed knight cannot perform military service effectively, but a dead knight provides no service at all. The surgical decision requires honest assessment of survival probabilities and frank discussion of post-amputation life prospects with patients who may not survive either option. Battlefield surgery represents medieval amputation at its most desperate and most effective. Military surgeons developed techniques for rapid assessment and treatment of traumatic injuries that civilian practitioners rarely encounter in such volume. Crushing injuries, sword cuts, and arrow wounds create the kind of tissue damage that requires immediate amputation decisions made under battlefield conditions with minimal equipment and maximum time pressure from other wounded soldiers awaiting treatment. The military surgical approach emphasizes triage principles that civilian surgeons adapt for their own practice. Immediate treatment for cases with good survival prospects, comfort care for hopeless cases, and delayed treatment for injuries that can wait while more urgent cases receive attention. These battlefield lessons improve civilian surgical outcomes by teaching efficient use of limited surgical resources and realistic assessment of which patients can benefit from aggressive interventions like amputation. Prosthetic development in medieval times focuses on functional rather than cosmetic replacement of amputated limbs, creating devices that allow basic task performance for patients who survive surgical limb removal. Simple wooden legs can provide mobility for below-knee amputees willing to adapt their walking style. Hook and strap systems allow limited hand function for arm amputees whose occupations require basic grasping and manipulation capabilities. These prosthetic solutions are crude but functional enough to allow some degree of economic productivity for surgical survivors who must adapt to altered physical capabilities. The social implications of medieval amputation extend beyond immediate medical outcomes to include economic and social consequences that affect entire families when primary wage earners lose limbs that determine their ability to work. Agricultural workers who lose arms cannot perform many farming tasks effectively. Craftsmen whose trade requires manual dexterity may need to learn entirely different occupations. Military personnel face discharge from service and loss of income that often support extended family members who depend on their wages. Your evening consultation involves a merchant's wife's infected leg wound that has failed to respond to conventional treatments and now threatens her life through spreading infection that could prove fatal without surgical intervention. However, the amputation she requires would eliminate her ability to manage household duties that are essential for her family's economic stability and social position within the merchant community.
The case illustrates medieval surgery's broader social context,
where medical decisions affect not just individual patients, but entire family economic systems that depend on specific physical capabilities for their continued function. The surgeon must consider not only immediate survival prospects, but also long-term family welfare in a society that provides limited support for disabled individuals who cannot contribute to household productivity through traditional gender roles. Pain management for post-amputation patients relies on techniques that provide ongoing relief during the extended healing period required for major surgical recovery. Opium-based preparations, when available, offer the most effective pain control, but require careful dosing to avoid complications from overdose or dependency. Herbal remedies including willow bark, vervain, and other analgesic plants provide modest pain relief with fewer risks than stronger medications. Alcohol consumption offers temporary pain relief but can interfere with healing and create additional health problems for patients recovering from surgical trauma. Infection control in medieval surgical practice develops through empirical observation rather than theoretical understanding of bacterial contamination and disease transmission. Surgeons learned that certain practices improve patient survival rates without necessarily understanding the underlying mechanisms that make these techniques effective. Clean instruments and bandages reduce infection rates compared to obviously dirty materials. Wine washing of wounds appears to improve healing outcomes compared to water cleaning. Cauterization prevents both bleeding and infection more effectively than simple bandaging. The development of surgical techniques through apprenticeship training creates knowledge transmission systems that preserve effective practices while gradually eliminating techniques that proved ineffective through repeated clinical experience. Master surgeons teach apprentices not just technical procedures, but also clinical judgment about patient selection, timing, and post-operative care that determines surgical success rates. This practical education system produces competent surgeons despite the lack of formal medical education or theoretical understanding of anatomical and physiological principles. Seasonal variations in surgical practice reflect both the availability of patients and the optimal conditions for surgical recovery that medieval practitioners observe through experience with different types of cases throughout the year. Spring and summer surgeries heal more successfully than winter procedures, possibly due to better nutrition, warmer temperatures, and increased daylight that supports patient recovery during the critical post-operative period. Harvest season brings increased traumatic injuries from agricultural accidents, but also better nutrition that supports surgical recovery for patients with adequate food supplies. The economic aspects of medieval surgery include both the costs of surgical treatment and the financial implications of successful or unsuccessful surgical outcomes. Amputation procedures require payment for the surgeon's services, assistance labor, and materials used during surgery and post-operative care. Successful surgery allows patients to return to some form of productive work, while surgical failure creates economic burdens for families who lose wage earners without gaining the benefits of successful amputation and recovery. Your final case of the day
involves a young apprentice whose hand was crushed in a mill accident, creating injuries that threaten both immediate survival and long-term prospects for learning a trade that requires manual dexterity. The surgical decision must balance the probability of survival against the likelihood that amputation will eliminate the patient's ability to pursue the skilled craftwork that represents his only prospects for economic advancement in a society that offers limited opportunities for disabled workers. The apprentice's case represents medieval surgery's most tragic aspects, procedures that save lives while eliminating the physical capabilities that make those lives economically viable in societies that depend heavily on manual labor and physical strength for most forms of productive work. The surgical success that prevents death may simultaneously create economic circumstances that make survival difficult for patients who cannot adapt to altered physical capabilities in occupational and social contexts that provide limited accommodation for disability. As your day's surgical practice concludes, the pattern becomes clear that medieval amputation represents both medical achievement and social tragedy. Procedures sophisticated enough to save lives in desperate circumstances, but crude enough to create new problems for patients who survive the immediate trauma of losing major body parts in societies that struggle to accommodate physical disability in their economic and social structures. The survival rates achieved by medieval amputation surgery, while low by modern standards, represent genuine medical progress for treating conditions that would otherwise prove fatal. The techniques preserve life in circumstances where no alternative treatment exists, demonstrating human ingenuity and determination to develop effective medical interventions despite limited understanding of anatomy, physiology, and infection control that modern medicine considers essential for safe surgical practice.
Your medical practice contributes to the gradual accumulation of surgical knowledge that will eventually lead to safer and more effective techniques for treating traumatic injuries and infectious diseases that threaten life and limb. Each amputation provides learning opportunities that improve future surgical outcomes through better understanding of patient selection, surgical technique, and post-operative care that increases survival rates and functional recovery for subsequent patients. The broader medical context of medieval amputation includes its role in treating diseases and injuries that have few alternative therapeutic options in an era when most medical interventions prove ineffective for serious conditions. Surgical amputation offers definitive treatment for localized infections, traumatic injuries, and gangrenous conditions that resist other forms of medical treatment available to medieval physicians and surgeons working with limited pharmacological resources. As evening falls over medieval Rouen, your surgical workshop grows quiet after a day spent saving some lives, losing others, and always working at the dangerous intersection of medical necessity and surgical trauma that defines medieval surgery's approach to treating desperate medical conditions with techniques that are simultaneously life-saving and life-altering. The instruments are cleaned and stored for tomorrow's surgical challenges.
while the knowledge gained from today's procedures becomes part of the accumulated experience that guides future surgical decisions and technique refinements that gradually improve outcomes for patients who require amputation surgery to survive conditions that would otherwise prove fatal. Tonight, as medieval surgical patients begin their long recovery periods, you can rest knowing that your crude but effective techniques represent the best available treatment for conditions that offer no alternative to surgical intervention, performed under challenging circumstances with limited resources but maximum commitment to preserving human life. The gentle medieval evening settles over a city where surgical survival represents triumph over circumstances that would defeat less determined medical practitioners, working in an era when cutting things off remains the most effective treatment for many conditions that threaten life, limb, and long-term survival of patients who entrust their lives to surgeons armed with sharp instruments and hard-won experience. And in the peaceful medieval night, where surgical patients rest fitfully during the critical recovery period that determines their ultimate fate, we can appreciate the courage required for both performing and surviving medical procedures that represent humanity's early attempts to develop effective treatments for traumatic conditions, using techniques that prioritize immediate survival over long-term functional outcomes. The eternal human struggle against injury, infection, and death continues through medieval surgical techniques that demonstrate both the limitations and the achievements possible when medical necessity meets surgical courage in circumstances that demand immediate action despite inadequate knowledge and primitive technology that makes every successful surgery a minor miracle. Tonight, as both medieval and modern readers contemplate the development of surgical techniques through centuries of gradual improvement, the night holds quiet appreciation for medical progress that has transformed surgical outcomes from desperate last resorts to routine medical procedures that save lives and preserve function through techniques that would seem miraculous to medieval surgeons who pioneered amputation as life-saving medical intervention. And as peaceful sleep comes to both the surgeons and those recovering from their procedures, the quiet darkness preserves the ancient understanding that medical practice requires courage to attempt treatments that may fail, wisdom to recognize when intervention helps, and determination to continue developing techniques that gradually improve human prospects for surviving the injuries and diseases that threaten life and limb. The medieval night holds its surgical patients gently, supporting their recovery through the critical hours when healing must overcome trauma, and preserving the knowledge that medical progress comes through the accumulation of individual cases where surgical courage meets medical necessity in the ongoing human effort to preserve life through techniques that balance immediate survival against long-term consequences for patients who entrust their lives to surgeons working at the dangerous intersection of healing and harm. And in the sacred darkness that embraces both medieval workshops and modern hospitals, we find peace in knowing that surgical techniques continue to evolve through centuries of gradual improvement that transformed crude but effective procedures into sophisticated interventions that preserve both life and function for patients who benefit from the accumulated wisdom of surgeons who learned through experience that sometimes cutting things off is the kindest and most effective form of medical care. The gentle night settles over the eternal human story of medical progress, where each generation of healers builds upon the knowledge and courage of their predecessors who faced desperate medical circumstances with determination to preserve human life through whatever techniques proved effective, regardless of their apparent brutality or their limited understanding of the complex biological processes they were attempting to influence through surgical intervention.